All right, mixing vocals. Now, I know every singer is unique and every voice is different, but when it comes to EQing vocals in the mix, there are certain spots in the frequency range that pretty much work every time in every song with every singer. So in this video, I'll show you exactly where to start when it comes to boosting with EQ on your vocals. And generally, I don't cut with EQ when I'm mixing vocals, but there is one problem area that you might want to watch out for. I'm going to show you these EQ moves in action in a session, so let's dive in. Everybody here is running away from... Now, I'm just going to get rid of the plugin I'm using for EQ so we can start over. Now, the first frequency you want to look at boosting is 8K with a shelf. Let's check that out. Away from themselves, believing that life is now fair, I'm okay. So it's starting to sound better already in just a few seconds. Now, this 8K range with boosting with the shelf, this is that radio-ready polish and brightness that we're used to hearing. Now, if you find yourself boosting 8K, if it sounds a little harsh or a little hard on certain vocals, you could try boosting at 10 or 12K with the shelf instead, but it's going to be a little more airy and less present. But 95% of the time, I'm just boosting 8K and I'm not afraid to use a lot of it. All right, the second place you want to look at boosting is about 4.5K. Away from themselves, believing that life is now fair, I'm okay. And this frequency range is more for the intelligibility of the vocal, that definition, trying to make the words and the consonants really pop. So you'll hear just with those two quick moves, it's starting to come out and be more up front now, but we still need more mid-range to help this cut through the mix and stay right up front. Now, the process for this is to start around 1K, do a nice boost, and then start moving around between 1 and 2.5K and find the spot where the vocal just starts to jump out of the mix. Everybody here is running away from themselves, believing that life is now fair, I'm okay. Feel much better up this way, I'm okay. So I'm finding right there around 1.7K, it's starting to pop out of the mix a little bit. It's sounding a little more upfront without being too harsh, so let's dial that in. Everybody here is running away from themselves, believing that life is now fair, I'm okay. Feel much better up this way, I'm okay. So much better. Now, after boosting that frequency, I feel like we need a little more brightness still. Everybody here is running away from themselves, believing that life is now fair, I'm okay. Now, with this 1 to 2.5K boost, every voice is different. This is really the area that changes more from mix to mix and voice to voice. But generally, the more aggressive the mix is, the more heavy the band is, the more of this 1 to 2.5K area you're going to need in the mix. And that's a tip you can apply across the board in your mixes. If you want something to be upfront and poke out of the mix, well, the frequency range you want to look at boosting is around 1.5 to 2.5K with any instrument. That's the upfront frequency. Please make sure that you're doing these EQ moves in the context of the mix, not in solo, because if you're doing it in solo, then you're not going to find the right frequencies that help it contrast and stick out of the mix, and also you're probably not going to push them far enough. And if you want to make sure you remember all these frequencies I'm talking about in this video, I do have a free mixing cheat sheet that I made for you. It's at mixcheatsheet.com. It's got all the go-to starting points listed out there for mixing vocals and also for all the other instruments in the mix as well. So just go to mixcheatsheet.com if you want to grab that. All right, at this point, notice that I haven't made any cuts with EQ on the vocal yet. And contrary to what a lot of other people will tell you, I almost never cut with EQ on a vocal track. It's something that I used to do a lot. I try to find the nasty resonant frequencies in the mid-range and stuff, and then I dip them out. But what I would find is I wouldn't have anything left. I would take away all of the magic of the vocal. And so if you grab an EQ and start sweeping a narrow boost around the mid-range and cutting out any frequencies that jump out, well, what will actually happen is you'll remove everything that is actually unique about that vocal. So I'd rather just leave those mid-range frequencies alone, maintain the character of the vocal, and instead just add more of these high-mid frequencies and high-end frequencies to get it to cut through the mix and make it bright enough. Now, with that said, there are rare occasions where I will make a small cut in the low end, which is almost always a low shelf dip around 200 hertz. So let me solo the vocal so you can hear this. Everybody here is running away from themselves, believing So that's an example of where in solo, that little dip actually sounded nice. It kind of cleaned up and clarified the top end, got rid of some of that low end woofiness. But in the context of the mix, I think it's actually too thin now. So I would leave that in.
Everybody here is running away from themselves, believing.
I wanted to show you that though, because sometimes there is too much low end and woofiness and low end buildup in the vocal. And I find that just putting a low shelf at around 200 hertz and knocking it down like 1 to 3 dB will clean that right up. But I only do that after I try boosting these other frequencies, because you don't want to go thinning out your vocal if you don't need to. Maybe you just needed some more brightness in top end. All right, here's our vocal after these EQ moves now.
Everybody here is running away from themselves, believing that life is now fair, I'm okay.
Now this song also has some scream vocals, and I'll show you really quick that I'm using the exact same frequencies on those. So we've got 8K, around 4K. This time we ended up at 2K for that mid-range boost. And then we are actually dipping out some low end here at 200 on this scream. Sounds like the guy was right up on the mic, so we have that proximity effect that we dip out. Just to prove to you that these magic frequencies will work on almost any vocal, let me show you this on a completely different style of song. Here it is with the EQ totally zeroed out.
We all knew these days will come. Can't seem to stop the rain, ease the pain.
There's the 8K, don't be shy.
We all knew these days will come. Can't seem to stop the rain, ease the pain. Bunny dares that she's the setting sun eclipse. We all knew these days will come. Can't seem to stop the rain, ease the pain. Bunny dares that she's the setting sun.
Voila, check out this before and after.
We all knew these days will come. Can't seem to stop the rain, ease the pain. Bunny day.
All right, so there's your magic starting points for EQing vocals. Remember, starting with an 8K boost with the shelf, then going down to 4.5K for that definition in the vocal. Then to help it cut through the mix and stay up front, you want to boost between 1 and 2.5K. And if after all that, the vocal is still a bit woofy and boomy, then you can use a low shelf around 200 hertz and clear it up with a dip around 1 to 3 dB. All of these frequencies are written down for you on my mixing cheat sheet, which you can grab at mixcheatsheet.com. And one last thing I want to reiterate is that you want to make these EQ moves into a compressor. And also after you've added all this top end, you're going to need to do some de-essing and a few other moves to get this vocal sitting properly in the mix. So if you want to learn how to properly follow up this vocal EQ with dynamic control in the mix, click here and check out this next video.